India versus Australia, as far as an ICC World Cup final goes, it just doesn't get much bigger than that. This is, after all, going to be the first time in the history of the Cricket World Cup that two multi-time world champions of the Cricket World Cup will be taking each other on in the final, which just goes to show you how rich the legacy is that these nations share as far as the sport of cricket is concerned. But of course, a cricket match in the present day is not one of legacies in the past. It is of course won by winning those small little battles that take place out on the pitch, and which can more often than not determine which way it is that the overall big battle ends up going. So those little micro battles can be very key in determining how it is that the macro battle goes. But what exactly are those micro battles, I hear you ask? Worry not, because that's exactly what we are here to discuss in this particular video on Sports Today. So without further ado, let's take a look at the 5 key battles that could potentially determine where it is the ICC Cricket World Cup final heads. The first key battle is one between Rohit Sharma and Mitchell Starc. Now, Rohit Sharma has actually become something of a darling among certain cricket fans in India for giving India those very fast-paced starts up top. Now, of course, that does more often than not leave him a little bit susceptible to getting out. And one of the players who can possibly inflict the most damage on Rohit in this particular case is Mitchell Starc. Now, of course, there is that rather obvious weakness that Rohit has had against left-handed pacers, although to his credit, he seems to have corrected that a lot during this particular World Cup. But Starc at his best isn't just good because he's a left-hander. He's good because you can get the ball to swing at the kind of speed which he possesses, and that is what makes Starc such a lethal weapon. Yes, the left-hander part does add to his threat, but he'd be a threat even if he was a right-handed bowler, and we know that he's been a bit hit or miss in the World Cup. But if he chooses to show up in the final, which to be fair he has done in the past, 2015 is one that comes to mind, and there's an interesting parallel to be drawn there in the sense that it was Starc who got rid of Brendan McCullum, the swashbuckling daring captain of the New Zealand team, that ended up actually getting dismissed rather cheaply in the final. If you're an Indian fan like all of us here are, you'd hope that that is not a case of history repeating himself, and if Rohit is to make an impact, he'll need to negotiate this big battle early on. Key battle number 2 is Virat Kohli versus Glenn Maxwell. Now, I get it. I guess you're asking, why is it that Glenn Maxwell, of all people, would be a key battle for Virat Kohli? That's because, well, more often than not, pacers have not troubled Virat Kohli all that much in this World Cup. And you'd think that Adam Zampa might be the more key and obvious one here, because Zampa does have a pretty good record against Kohli in white ball cricket. But again, Kohli hasn't been all that troubled by wrist spin either. So, the key battle which I've picked is the one with Maxwell, because Maxwell as a bowler I feel is a bit underrated. He does tend to, put in a lot of hard yards, very clever bowler, and will more often than not end up getting your wickets at a time when you least expect it. That and the fact that one of Kohli's biggest weaknesses in recent times has been finger spin, as is evidenced by the fact that he struggled a lot against left arm finger spinners as well. And off spin has traditionally been seen as one of those, let's say, disciplines that has tended to trouble Virat when he gets, say, a little bit of a slow start. So this for me is the key battle. If Kohli can actually negotiate a few overs from his good friend and RCB teammate Glenn Maxwell, then you might potentially see another big knock from Kohli, this time in the final. However, if there's anyone who could potentially get his wicket and ensure he doesn't do too much damage, I'd say Maxwell is right up there with the favourites. Key battle number 3 features another Indian batsman in Shreyas Iyer going up against Adam Zampa. Now again, I guess you're wondering why this is the case, because more often than not, Shreyas does tend to absolutely murder spinners, and you'd be right in thinking that. But there is also another thing that people tend to forget, is that if you are being this attacking against a wrist spinner as effective and with the beguile of a Zampa, you may end up getting a few runs, but it's also a possibility that you could end up losing your wicket. And Zampa has been easily the pick of the Australian bowlers as far as wicket taking is concerned. Right now, he's still in with a chance of finishing the tournament with the most number of wickets. He's in contention with Mohammad Shami, who we'll get to in a bit, don't you worry. and could very well be that player who does actually inflict the most damage on the Indians, considering there is talk that this could be a slightly more sluggish pitch that does see the spinners come into play. Remember, this is going to be the same pitch that hosted the India-Pakistan game, and that was a pitch that, by the way, was given an average rating by the ICC. So if it retains the same characteristics, or if, as some people fear, gets a little worse, someone like Zampa could very much be in play, and then you'll really need a Shreyas Iyer, someone who has toiled a lot on the domestic circuit and honed his game against spin to such a degree that no spinner seems to trouble him, to play yet another big knock, as he has been doing through the course of the World Cup, at least in the latter stages. Key battle number 4 is Travis Head versus Mohammad Shami. Now, why I've picked this as a key battle is because Head, more often than not, has that ability to play an absolutely swashbuckling innings and pretty much set up the game for Australia. You saw it happen against South Africa. You saw it happen when he made his comeback or return in the World Cup. They missed out on the earlier stages due to a wrist injury, then healed up, came back, and in that first match back, got 100. The impact that a Head has cannot be understated. And what is more troubling than not is that he might not always spend big amounts of time at the crease, but when he does, he's possible, or more than that, probable to get 100. And if he does end up even not spending too much time, as South Africa found out, it can be enough to ensure that the game goes Australia's way. And Head was someone who did end up troubling India a lot earlier this year when India were playing ODI series at home against Australia, and he will be hoping that another big head knock is around the corner, because when that happens, more often than not, Australia tend to win. But if there's anyone who you know can get rid of this wicket, just as he has been doing for key batters throughout this particular tournament, you know it's going to be Mohammad Shami, whose attacking, bowling and movement of the seam has been exactly as we'd expected, but the impact that it's made was something that even his most ardent backers would not have been able to believe, and that's how good it has been. So I'm definitely looking forward to this particular battle, but there is one more I'm looking forward to even more. And that is the one between Mitchell Marsh and Kuldeep Yadav. Now, of course, both of these players would be somewhat familiar with each other. They do play together in the same IPL team, the Delhi Capitals. But both of them also possess a similar ability in the sense that they absolutely can, if they get going, take the game away from any opposition. Marsh with the bat has been a phenomenon, despite the fact that his batting position has been up and down. Remember, when Head was out of the team, then Marsh was opening alongside Warner. Once Head came back, Marsh dropped down to number 3, but his effectiveness and impact has not waned in the slightest. In fact, you could say that despite the fact that he's played in 2 positions, the impact he's had has not been negated at all. And it doesn't help matters that in recent times, Marsh has a pretty good record against India. In fact, currently he's averaging about 65 in ODI games against India, and that is staggering, to put it politely. However, Marsh is also someone who can feast on spin bowlers, but may also lose his wicket, and that's where someone like with the guile and class of a Kuldeep Yadav will come into play. If Marsh can bat deep into the middle overs, you know India are going to turn to Kuldeep Yadav to ensure that they can send the dangerous man packing. Should he be able to do that, big W for India in that particular key battle and potentially the game. If they don't, however, then Marsh, very much like Head, does have the tendency to bat long and bat big, which would be a worrisome sign for India. And that is what we think are the 5 key battles that could determine where it is the World Cup heads. What are your thoughts? Do you think there are any key battles that we should have highlighted that maybe we missed out on? You can let us know that in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, download the AajTak app and check out their website. And stay tuned to Sports Today. Plenty more coming your way. For now though, from my side, it is goodbye.